Hey, how you doing? So I just wanted to ask you. I do believe God is real, and one of the reasons I think He's real is based upon the near-death experience stories of people that rise above the surgical table, see photographs on top of the surgical lights, basically meet family members that died that they've never met, uh, miscarriages, things like that. That's one of the
Yeah.
reasons.
So, okay, yeah, you're saying near the experiences. Uh, the,
Excuse me?
the problem is that we have no evidence that these people actually saw the things you're claiming. There is no experiment or study that's been done on these experiences that conclude there's something supernatural happening here.
Well, when you say evidence, what do you mean? You mean under oath testimony?
No, that's a good question. Evidence is data or facts that support a particular conclusion. They raise the likelihood of something being correct. That's evidence, and there is none of that for what you call near-death these experiences here.
Well, what about the eyewitnesses of the people the nurses and the doctors that worked on the people who died on the table, and then when they come back, they can talk about everything that happened below them as they rose above the table? I mean, there's never been a trial where they've testified under oath, obviously, because that's not something you'd have a trial about, but certainly that's evidence. The statements of eyewitnesses are evidence. I mean, it's how police officers make arrests based upon eyewitness testimony or statements. I mean, if you're just going to say there's no evidence, then obviously there's never going to be evidence because there's not under oath testimony about these things because there's not a trial about it.
Evidence is by definition falsifiable. It's something you can test, you can verify.
Evidence in court is under oath testimony.
This is not a court, sir.
So how are we ever going to prove anything you say? You can always say there's no evidence of anything.
Because in court, if you go to court and you say, I saw Bigfoot, that no judge will take you seriously.
Well, if you testify under oath that you saw Bigfoot, that would be accepted as evidence by the judge and a jury.
Hold on, Lucas. Let me explain. When you go to a court,
Yeah.
it's not just eyewitness testimony that makes a judge, decide a particular case. It's the corroborating data that backs up that eyewitness testimony. If you went up to a judge and says, "I saw Bigfoot, I saw aliens," they're not going to take you seriously at all. No rational person would, and that's why simply saying, "Oh, look at this person saw," that tells us nothing about what they saw. It doesn't tell us that they could have been wrong. There's all kinds of possibilities that are more likely than, oh yeah, this person actually saw heaven. There is no evidence. There is no testable data that demonstrates heaven at all. You have nothing.
Yeah. So when a person is physically dead, their brain waves are completely have stopped.
Again, you keep reiterating the same claim. I understand that people have claimed to have these experiences, but how do you know this means there's a heaven and not just them hallucinating or having
Well, because their brain waves have completely stopped. It's actual clinical death.
That doesn't
So there's no brain waves, so they can't be an hallucination because there's no brain waves.
Just because we can't understand or see brain waves doesn't mean you're not thinking at all. There are different types of brain waves.
Where's the evidence of that?
There are limits to what we measure.
Where's the evidence of that? You just said something that's really not verifiable.
Hold on. Second of all, more importantly, how do you know there were no brain waves? How do you know this? Where is the actual recording of this? Where's the documentation? Where is there any data here that supports these claims?
Well, before you speak on it, you should actually, read books on it and watch movies. I mean, there are doctors that are way more knowledgeable than you about neurology and the brain, and basically talk about the fact that they're based upon the equipment we have in the 21st century. There are no brain waves. There cannot be thought. There cannot be hallucinations, imagination, anything. But they come back from that experience.
You keep saying the same thing over and over.
All right. Well, you keep saying the same thing. You can just say there's no evidence of anything.
Relax. Take a deep breath, Lucas, and relax. Relax. Again, I'm showing you that there are other possibilities at work here. It could be the case that this person was hallucinating. It could be the case that they were dreaming. It could be the case that they were lying. It could be the case that it was a made-up story. It could be the case that the doctors misdiagnosed the patient. It could be the case that there really were brain waves. All these possibilities could be true. It could be the case that they were actually awake and they could see with their eye open slightly. All these things are more likely than, oh yeah, this person died and saw heaven, right? We need more data than just he said, she said. It's not going to work in the empirical world. So I'll give you one more chance to give me anything substantial here. If not, you can frankly just go. DNA does not contain code. DNA does not contain code. DNA does not contain code. Why is it that every time we mute somebody, they have to echo? DNA is just a molecule. It's not code. DNA is just a molecule. It's just like every other molecule in your body. Rocks have atoms in them, just like DNA has atoms in them. You can prescribe code to any system of atoms or molecules. It doesn't mean a damn thing. So yeah, just the sheer fact of DNA does not mean God. DNA is an evolutionary product.
Hello, Mike. All right. I got a question. Why do you think God is imaginary?
Yeah, how old are you?
I'm 17.
Please put a battery in your smoke alarm. Holy moly.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm not doing all right, man. How are you?
Good.
I just wanted to come on here. I'm a Christian. I'm 48. I wanted to come on here to sound the alarms. I had a premonition from God that this is the 666th Halloween coming up. So, and I know the Bible says that no man knows, not even Jesus, no angel. But this is the 660th.
You guys are missing my point. You can view DNA as a code, but just as I can view any other molecule as a code in a system, right? DNA is just an encoding molecule. That's all it means. There are many other molecules like that. RNA, number one. Number two, we know how those things emerge naturally. It's called evolution. It's called abiogenesis. It's called chemistry. Those explain DNA, not some God. It's not needed. That's the problem with saying DNA, therefore God, right? It's a big problem.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
You say God is imaginary. Can you prove me wrong? Well, most definitely, I never seen my 77th grandmother, but I know she exists. You know, God.
Because we can infer that with the evidence of biology. Yes.
Well, you got to look at it like this. You are the evidence because God, He represents the source.
What's your evidence? What's your evidence that God's the source?
Well, you got to trace everything back, right? So what I mean by that is, let's go as far as the educational system. When it was first established, it came from the church, right? So we know that all knowledge, or the originality of where knowledge came from, it came from spiritual books to begin with. So those were the first, you would say schools, as you would say. So, and then all the rest of the information trickled down from these churches.
All right, let me ask you again in a nicer way. What's your evidence that God's the source? I don't want books. I want actual evidence. You know what evidence means?
Sure, I can give you evidence. If you look at your body, look at the brain that you possess. It's like a control board. Look at the heart that bumps. You can obviously tell that our structure was created by a magnificent being, and very intelligent. You know, when you just look at yourself, that's proof. You know, look at that confident, sophisticated system that your body is. That's proof that
Sorry,
there's a creator.
sorry. I just choked on my water. I'm sorry. I only have one hole to eat and breathe from. What were you saying? We're perfectly made?
No, I never said we were perfectly made.
Okay.
I said the system that God created is perfect.
That's perfect. So how would you know that we're perfect? You just can't pretend we're perfect when I can point to many flaws in our bodies.
Okay, well, I can prove it.
Why do we get allergies? Why do we get pneumonia? Why do we starve? Why do we have to eat and drink every day or we'll die?
Okay,
Why do we have one hole to eat and breathe from? Why do we get cancer? These are all flaws of the body.
all right. So, do you believe that everything happened or happens for a reason, or there's a reason for it been
No,
existing?
not everything happens for a reason.
So, some stuff is just created for no reason.
Some things may be brute facts. They don't have reason.
Okay, what do you think about this then? The reality is, our Creator, He created all the scenarios and all the different realities that you, as a human, can choose from. So, what that
What's
means
your
is,
evidence of that? I want evidence.
the evidence is clear. The evidence is very simple. If you study to be a doctor, you will be a doctor. If you take drugs, you go down the wrong path. So the reality of it is, all these different realities were created. It's none of them are coincidence.
Dream, I'm sorry, but you're just
So
making
basically,
claims. You're just making claims upon claim upon claim. I want evidence of these claims being true.
I tell you what. Have you ever take the time to read the Quran?
Yeah, it's full of errors.
All right. So you realize, right? You can prove from the Quran. Did you read it in English or Arabic?
English.
All right, that was your number one mistake right there.
Okay, so where's your evidence in English that God exists? Go
You say
ahead.
where's the
What is your
evidence?
evidence? What is your evidence in English that God exists?
You say what's my evidence? Every single
Yes,
thing
use
around
your
you.
evidence.
Do you believe that you need a source for every single thing you need?
What do you mean by source?
So if you want to make Kool-Aid, you need water, right?
Okay.
So you need a source, and God, He represents that source. He's the one where all this stuff came from.
Okay, where does God's source come from? Where's the source that God comes from? Come
You
from?
have to understand. You have to understand your limitations, and you have to understand who
Hey,
you are
Curry,
and
where,
what you
where did
are.
God come from?
You
Where is
know,
God's source?
try
The,
to.
the super God source?
I'm trying to answer you. The answer is your brain and the way you think is very limited. Humans, we don't have the ability to, think beyond, what a thought could be generated. And that in order for a thought to be generated, you would have to see it or hear it. So anything that a human knows is going to be programmed. So it's going to be something taught. They have to see it or they have to hear it. This basic fact, this knowledge of that, we know that the humans does not possess the ability to generate a thought from anything, proves that every single thing needs a source, and that proves God.
Okay, where is God's source?
Once again, you're the way you thinking. You have to know that you only know a very little bit about a very.
All right, we need more people in here, guys. We don't have enough guests. We have nobody in the guest request right now. Oh my God, get over the damn code. Who coded God? If you think DNA is a code, how about God? Who coded God? Oh, God doesn't have a coder. Okay, then why does anything else need a coder? Why can't things just be naturally this way? And humans are the ones who prescribe things codes. A code is just symbolic. It's a way of expressing how a system operates. It's not intrinsic to nature. Code is not an intrinsic factor of reality. It's something we use to describe reality.
Hello?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. God is imaginary. So when you say God is imaginary, do you like know he's imaginary, or you just say because there's no evidence?
Okay, well, how old are you first?
I'm 19.
Yeah, so when I say God's imaginary, I mean it's most likely the case it doesn't exist. The lack of evidence is good reason to reject its existence, but also divine hiddenness, the problem of evil, the Omni paradoxes. There's all kinds of issues logically with certain gods.
Okay. So when it comes to logic, ethics, let's say reasoning, how do you justify these things? Like, how do you ground these things into, where do you find the justification for these things, and why are they grounded
Like
into
justify these
the reality?
What do you mean? How do I justify these things?
Sorry, I'm getting a spam call. But what I'm trying to say is, I think that I believe that these things are impossible to justify without a God.
What do you,
I feel like grounding these things.
So, okay, first of all, hold on. Logic is not a proposition. Logic is a noun. It doesn't need justification, right? Just like that, asking how do you justify logic is like asking, how do you justify rocks? It doesn't make any sense. Justification applies to propositions, not nouns, okay? So you're using the word incorrectly. Now, if you're asking what explains logic, where'd you go? If you're asking what explains logic, well, it's the brain process. Logic is just what happens in our brains. And the way you think is how logic arises. So it's natural and physical, just like everything else in the universe. In my view, everything's physical and natural. I don't need God to explain those things at all. Hello? Hello? Suhail?
Oh, hey. I'm sorry. I'm hearing you. I just thought you're talking to somebody else. I have just a question about evolution. And I do respect Darwin of what he did. But at the time of the evolution, they don't have the electronic microscope. So when they looked at the cell, they looked at something like bluish color. And that's it. And after that, they decided, well, this thing became 2 cells, 4 cells, 8 cells, whatever, till you go in and then become different creature. And, so my question, inside that cell, if you look, for example, the mitochondria is a machine that changes the phosphorus to be an energy. So how is a machine you can get an evolution in it?
All right, it's not actually a machine the way we colloquially use the term. When we refer to cells as machines or powerhouses, like things like that, what we mean is that they can exchange. They're tools. They facilitate energy exchange, and a simple atom can do that. But what happens in a cell is when you have a collection of these atoms, you have a system that can exchange energy in more elaborate ways than just one atom. And that's what a cell means. There's no intention behind the cells, in my view. There's nobody designing cells. It's just a product of nature. Very elaborate chemical processes. And that explains cells just fine. Now, do you have any evidence of God making cells?
No, I don't.
Okay.
God, I believe the meaning of it is simply no evidence. You just believe. Like if I ask you what color you like, you say blue. I can't ask you why.
Right.
Simply that's you just believe it.
The
I
problem is that
understand.
when you say God exists, that's a very particular claim you're making that requires more than just a preference. Like I would say, I like the color blue. Right. That's just a preference. I'm talking about you're making a claim about reality that is profound. Right. This magic God exists. That's I'm going to ask for reasons for that.
Well, the reasons is simply whatever we see, for example, as a human, whatever you see, there is a design. If we are created from one cell, the sperm and the egg of the lady, and you become one cell, and that cell divides to be two, similar, then four, then eight, whatever, and then go in numbers. Then those cells choose to be a brain. Then some of them choose to be a heart.
They don't choose to be brains. You're right. The way our bodies work is amazing. It's very intricate, very exquisite the way the body works. However, it's not, there's nobody choosing, there's no cell choosing to become a brain. What makes up the brain cells are other cells, but there are certain proteins in your cells that can encode for the brain cells and encodes for all the other cells in all your organs. So again, DNA, it's all in our DNA, which is what gives rise to all the different cells in our bodies. Our bodies, through evolutionary reasons, know, well, they don't actually know, but the DNA itself is able to encode for all those different cells because of evolutionary reasons. So again, although it's hard for somebody to look at the body and say it wasn't designed, it's very natural to say that. We now know through biology that it was our bodies are the products of millions of years of evolution, natural selection, biochemistry. It's very complicated. It's not magic.
I see your point, but really, if you think about how we even perceive the world, when we look at things and they become electrical impulses in our brain, then we can hear, we can see. There is stuff there that we cannot hear, we cannot see, but it's there. For example, infrared, X-ray, sound waves. We do not see that. So, but we see the TV, we can look at there, and maybe we have a signal, our brain just a receiver, just projects this life.
Yes, in a
Some
way,
like- and some
it's not
intelligence.
projecting. The brain might receive stimuli, and that's what the brain does all the time. But it's not projecting reality. That's unevidenced in my eyes. I think it's just as easy to say that there is an external world that we don't have to be skeptical about. It's there, and we are different. We are distinct from that external world, and the brain is a mechanism that can take in stimuli and generate our perspective. But there's clearly a distinction between the internal world and the external world, in my eyes. And but look, I don't see how this gets to God.
Yeah. What I'm not saying is God. You can call God, you can call power, you can go say a will, you can say intelligence. I don't know what it is, but
I think you're trying to personify the world. I think you're saying, wow, Mike, this world looks like it works in systems, and these systems must need intelligence to be produced. Well, I disagree. I think that the world does not have to conform to our preferences. It doesn't have to conform to how we think it works. It just does. It just works the way it does. And there's no reason why there has to be somebody behind it. I'm not convinced of that.
I understand. I just want you to know that I love your show and I'm always interested to hear your opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a lot of questions about the world, but just it seems like a big jump to say God. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello? You got me?
I can hear you. There might be a delay though.
Goodness. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think there is. I know this is off topic, but I got a question for you. Are you planning on going on a live to debate the ethics of eating animals anymore anytime soon? Like a vegan debate?
Probably this week, yeah, or this next week, yeah.
Said next weekend?
Yeah, in the coming week. Do you have an argument for God?
No, I just had a question about that.
Just come on, guys. You know me. I debate all the time about those things. Hello?
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Let's see, God is imaginary. So the previous guest, the one before the last, just was talking about evolutionary processes. Where does information come from in abiogenesis? And maybe even like the origin of the original protein.
Yeah, these are good questions. The problem with saying where does information come from is the fact that information, in my eyes, is mind dependent. Information just means systems of symbolic way of expressing what a system does. That takes a mind to understand. Inherently in nature, there is no information. It's just atoms, particles, wave functions. There is no information there without a mind to prescribe it. Now, in terms of the protein, well, we know that things like amino acids can form chains of peptides, and those can form longer chains of polypeptides, and those could form sheets of amyloids. Those are some of the first kinds of metabolic organisms that can perform autocatalysis. There's all kinds of there's also RNA, which can also encode for proteins, which we know forms through nucleotides. Introduce nucleotides to certain clay minerals, and you get the polymerization of RNA. So again, we have many experiments that demonstrate abiogenesis really happens. We just don't have the full puzzle completed. There's lots of missing pieces, but we have a general picture of the origin of life, and there's no need for God to be involved.
Sure, and that's the conclusion that you and many other atheists come to. I guess that's like the division of atheists versus creationists, because we look at the autonomy in the first cell and even like the human body today, and it requires information for a lot of these things to happen, including at the very first cell. Like where does the information come from to create this autonomy to send and work and all of that stuff to create the systems you're talking about? Right?
Again, the information is just you describing the system of organic molecules. The amino acids, the proteins, the lipids, the phosphates, they all come together and make and generate a cell. That's the system you're describing, the information. The information is coming from the world around the cell. The cell inputs energy and outputs energy. That's what a system does. That's what life does. And it's
right. So you're saying
it's purely described through biology. You never have to invoke the supernatural.
Sure. And so you're saying the probability of all of these collections of information and systems came to by random chance, which is actually takes insane amount of faith, mathematically speaking, instead of choosing that a omnipotent, hyperdimensional God being can create such a universe. I think that's a very interesting take, for sure.
That's a false dichotomy. First of all, I'm not saying it's random chance. I'm a determinist. I think that the universe, this is the only way the universe could have been. I can be necessitarian as well, philosophically speaking. But more importantly, there's other options too. It's not just either God or randomness. There's also the fact that there could be natural explanations behind the universe, or there could be a multiverse, and we're just one out of a billion other possible worlds. We don't know, but just because we don't know the origins of everything doesn't mean God had to do it.
Why not, though? Why aren't you taking that leap of faith when scientists even claim that there is at least 10 dimensions And the Bible even shows that there is hyperdimensionality within the characteristics of God. So why is it so far? Wait, hold on. Why is it so far fetched to believe that God, a hyperdimensional being, can create such a universe?
First of all, those dimensions are not fact. We don't. They're theoretical dimensions, hypothetical dimensions. They're mathematical dimensions. They're not something that scientists know exists.
Right, they're mathematics.
But more importantly, they're just look. We live in 4 dimensions. There's nothing magical about the 4 dimensions we live in. Space,
doubt.
time. There's nothing magical. So why would you make the inference that these other higher dimensions must have something magical in them? That seems
You're
like
right.
a profound and irrational jump. Also, I don't see reason why the fact that there are similarities that you can make from a 2024 perspective. You can go back to the Bible and make these erroneous and describe these similarities between the Bible and modern science, and try to force a connection, try to force a pattern where there isn't one, falsifiably. I think that's a mistake too.
Yeah. We each come to our own conclusions based off of this. I don't believe there's anything in the Bible that contradicts current mathematics or science. You will all obviously disagree with that. But I think there's insane evidence with the origin of biology and the creator God, and our human bodies are an example of that. I know there's flaws in the universe. That has to do with original sin. We live in a fallen world because of that, but that has nothing to do
Tired
with.
of all the claims you're making. I want you to demonstrate this God designed us. How do you tell the non-design from a design thing? How do you tell the difference? How do you know that we were designed?
Well, it's a typical watchmaker's argument, right? You go and find a watch in the middle of the forest, you assume that there had to be a designer.
Okay, I see a watch. I know there's a watchmaker. But when I see rain, do I think there's a rainmaker? Or when I see a volcano, do I think there's a volcano man pushing the magma? No. These are not inferences we make about the real world, because there's no need for those people to make the rain or the thunder. You don't need those things. So it's an invalid inference to make, to say, well, watches have a watchmaker, so therefore rain has a rainmaker. That's nonsense. When we have reasons, like there's other reasons behind the rain. It's just nature.
Sure, and that's the conclusion you're coming to. I have to come from the chance of probability. I have to come to that conclusion. Just how impossible it is of how many perfect systems that we see in this universe, including the fine-tuning argument of even this Earth, that there has to be a creator, right?
What do you mean perfect system?
Well, the perfect just systems of how we can breathe and how we can live and how we can have enough sunlight without burning, and how we can have enough oxygen and give the plants what they need and they give us what we need, and all of that stuff, right?
Well, first of all, if you're going to use the word perfection, meaning there's no flaws, there's tons of flaws I can point out in these systems. But let's just say we can't. Let's just say right now we can't say that there are flaws. Even if I were to say that from a modern day perspective, we look around the world, the sun comes up, the tides come in, they come out, we can breathe, we can drink. Wow, that's great. I agree with you. Those are great things. But there's options here. It's not just the product of a designer. It could also be the case that we evolved and we have, through natural selection, been able to survive within a certain threshold, a certain parameter of existing, of survival, right? And the point is that over time, we have continuously, but slowly, gradually, been able to fit in with the conditions through natural selection. Not that we were placed here in this perfect system, but we happen to, through natural selection, adapt to the conditions of the earth. That's the better, I think, more understandable and evidence-based perspective versus, we were placed here like pawns in a chess game.
Yeah, sure. I guess what we're discussing here, I don't think there is an end to seeing eye to eye, because your worldview starts at the beginning where you think random chance, well, you said not random, but that we all came from evolution, abiogenesis, and maybe we just don't know this original and all that stuff, the origin. And Christians, including myself, come from creationism. And we believe that there is design and there's all that stuff. I don't think we can see eye to eye in that, but there is absolute evidence. And I come to the conclusion that there's higher probability of a
But why?
hyperdimensional God.
Why? What makes you think it's more likely that God did it when there are other explanations that do just as good a job as your belief in God?
Mainly just because of how improbable it is that we came from a primordial soup, right? Or of just atoms clashing together
come on.
over trillions of years.
Look, that's a caricature of the science. You're misunderstanding the science. It's not just a soup, right? It's not just like a chicken noodle soup and then bam, humans.
Well, obviously.
You're forgetting the process. You're forgetting the biochemical process. You're forgetting that evolution isn't just one day there's a monkey, then next day there's a human. There's a slow, gradual, but understandable process that goes into making things like us arise. Abiogenesis is a fact of reality. It happens. We know it happens. Just because we don't have all the puzzle pieces connected doesn't mean God did it. Look at these two different hypotheses. You're saying God, trust me. We're saying, wait a minute, there's other explanations, and here's the evidence. And we have loads and loads, truckloads of evidence to show for evolution and abiogenesis. You're bringing no evidence. You're just going to say ad hoc, God did it. Anybody can do that. A toddler can do that. A caveman can do that. The problem is that your hypothesis is baseless. Mine is based on facts.
Well, I would argue it's actually not, because there's no proof that the information from the origin came from anything. In fact, it came from God as the designer.
By information. What do you mean by information?
The information needing in genetic code in order for the autonomous processes within the cell.
Okay, so you're saying that the information is the genetic code.
Yes.
Okay, and what do you mean by genetic code?
The code to send information for certain autonomous systems within the cell. Just like I said at the beginning.
What is the genetic code? What makes up that genetic code?
Well, the DNA and RNA.
Oh, fantastic. So you're just talking about molecules, just like I am. See? When it comes down to you make that you talk about these words, these information. Like this makes it seem like there's got to be some coder, right? When you use the word code, that implies a coder. Well, that's the wrong verbiage. It's a very misleading verbiage to use, because at the end of the day, the information is just molecules at work chemically. So again, we have an explanation for the information that we perceive. It's called chemistry. Go learn it sometime. Chemistry explains abiogenesis. It explains the origins of RNA. Go look up RNA polymerization through clay phosphates. Go look up the experiments. You have not done a single job. You have not done a single thing to do the work.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely studied mechanical engineering.
Okay, so can you provide me one study for abiogenesis?
So, studying a lot of this stuff, it's interesting.
No. Can you provide me one study about abiogenesis that you've countered?
Oh, there's plenty. There's plenty from Christian scientists. There's plenty from so many others.
Give me one.
You know what's interesting?
Give me one study. Give me one scientific study that you've countered.
It is speculative conclusions, just like you're coming to speculative conclusions of information from nothing.
Look, you got to be honest with me. Okay, be honest. It's okay if you don't know the answer. Provide me one source that you've countered from the scientific literature, and if you don't have a source, just tell me.
Here, I'll have one better for you. Provide me two sources, one that shows me information can come from nothing, and that there is evidence of speciation, species evolving from another species.
Okay. First of all, I don't say something from nothing. That's false. That's a straw man. Second of all, look at Richard Linsky's experiment where he took E. coli. It's called E. coli, the experiment of E. coli, speciation. He observed speciation in a lab setting. He introduced magnesium citrate to E. coli, and found that they speciated over 60,000 generations. This was about 20, 30 years.
But that's still bacteria, though.
It's a different species.
It's still bacteria, though.
It's a different species. You asked for speciation.
Yeah. I'm talking about
Okay.
like a dog
Okay,
into a
so
cat.
that doesn't happen. There's no such thing as a dog into a cat over a
So
generation.
then why should we come from monkeys?
We don't come from monkeys.
Apes, apes, apes.
Let me educate you. So when we say we evolve, we don't mean that we come from monkeys. This isn't Power Rangers. This isn't morphing time. What we mean by evolution is that we all share common ancestry. And over time, populations split, they diverge, and speciation occurs because they get different enough genetically such that they can't reproduce with their original population. That's speciation. And that's what you asked me to provide to you, and I did. I explained to you Richard Lindsay's experiment with E. coli. Go look it up. You haven't. You're not willing to do the work. You're being lazy.
I am willing to look it up, and I've done plenty of research, Mike. But
Okay, great.
All-
So then
all
you
I
would
know
know
is-
that there's evidence for speciation. It's in the fossil record. It's in lab experiments. It's in our DNA. Look at chromosome 2 in our DNA.
all I know is
Chromosomal fusions. How do you explain the insertions, the deletions of the genetic material in our
Sure.
DNA?
Man, all I know is it's highly improbable that information can come from nothing, and that there's insane design in this universe, and that Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world, and He loves you.
No. You just came to preach, which is cute, but you have failed at generating something substantial that can give evidence for God. You can sit there and say design, but again, you have no way of knowing what a non-design is. And just as you say everything's design, I can say everything's not design. Because we both are making the same assumption. Right? So, again, there's no evidence that leads us into the favor of there being design. Because every time you point to something designed, I can say, nope, it's not designed. And you can't tell the difference. That's the problem. There's no symmetry breaker between design and non-design. Okay, Crypto? I'll give you one more chance without you talking about bejesus.
No, I actually got to go, but God loves you, man.
Does he love me enough to help other people who need the help more than me? I don't want the love of God. I want him to love other people that have died in hurricanes. Why doesn't God love the people who died in those hurricanes?
He does, but we live in a fallen world.
Well, if he loves us, why doesn't he help anybody? Why does
He
he
will.
let people get harmed?
And He does. He helped us by sending His only begotten Son. Love you, man. I got to go.
That's just a claim. Again, you're saying that, but you haven't explained all the gratuitous suffering in the world. Why do kids starve? Why do kids get cancer? Why do all these ridiculous, unnecessary sufferings occur?
See, I mean, even the fact that you're claiming suffering proves that there's an objective morality, right? But
No, it
even
doesn't. No,
if
it
that's the
doesn't.
case,
It doesn't.
we live in a fallen world. To answer your question, and so
why can't God make the world go rise again? Why can't
He
God
will.
stop the
He
world
will.
from falling?
He will.
Why can't God catch the world?
He will in due time. But
Okay, but just look at what you're saying. He will in due time. Well, I can say unicorns did the universe, and in due time they'll come too to save the day from the unicorn monster. Anybody can make up these silly stories. It's
Yeah.
not time.
I'm telling you that a life with Jesus is only good. It only brings peace, love, joy, patience, all that stuff.
Is Jesus against slavery?
And of course He is. Of course.
So then why does he allow it in the Bible?
He doesn't. In fact, it's called bond servants,
All right.
and it rescues homelessness and people in poverty and actually helps them.
So you think Jesus is God, correct?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So when Jesus says in Exodus 21:20 that you can beat your slave, was that good to you to beat slaves?
No. Hold on. That's corporate punishment for disobedience in many other cases.
So you think beating somebody with a rod is justice?
It's not beating someone. It's disciplining them.
Wow. There's no difference between those two words.
Yes, because one causes literally almost death, And what?
So you think owning somebody's property is okay, correct?
No, again, that has to do with bond service.
Then why does God allow it in Exodus 21:20?
It's called bond servitude, which rescues people in poverty and homelessness.
No, God says in the Bible that you can own somebody's property in Exodus.
It's rescuing them from the current state of that they're being.
Did you hear what I just told you? That God allows you to own somebody's property. Do you think that's okay?
It's a great way to work off their current debt to somebody and slavery. Imagine if I owed someone so much debt and
let me get this from you. So you think owning somebody as a slave, as property, in other words, you get to own them as a person. You think that's a good way to get rid of debt?
you're looking way too much into this. It is a mutual agreement between the two people.
It's not an agreement, sir. It's not an agreement. You can
Yes, it is.
buy and sell slaves.
What is your evidence that it is not a mutual agreement?
Look up Exodus 21:7, where it says you can sell your daughter as a slave.
The Hebrew concepts in that time
Chris,
has everything to do with bond servitude to work off debt, homelessness, and poverty.
You're getting on my nerves, Crypto. Do you concede that the Bible says you can sell your daughter as a slave in Exodus 21:7?
There are different cases that we have no idea with our current culture, because our current understanding of slavery has everything to do with it.
That's not what I asked you. Let me try one more time with you.
I did answer it.
Yes or no? In the Bible, does it say you can sell your daughter as a slave?
There are certain predicaments in Exodus that have to do with their culture. Yes. Their culture.
So yes, you agree that you think it's okay to sell your daughter as a slave. Is that right, Crypto?
Their culture has everything to do with
Yes or no,
protecting.
Crypto? Yes or no? You can sell your daughter as a slave. That's the Jesus way.
It's for the protection of their own people. You don't have any idea about the culture that they were in.
No. Do you understand that what selling your daughter means? Do you think it's ever okay to sell your daughter as a slave?
You are claiming to understand their culture of what was happening during that time and the dangers at that time.
See how you're going around the issue. You're running away. Oh no! Right? Let's get back on track. I don't think it's ever okay to sell your daughter as a slave. That's always wrong. I don't care about the culture. I don't care about the time. The Jesus way is shitty. It's not love. It's slavery. I'm not going to go on about verses in Samuel 15 where Jesus commands the graping of women and children. He commands us to take the spoils of war. You know what that means, Crypto? It means graping people, graping war captives. That's the problem. That your Jesus guy is not a good hero. He's a wicked person, if he existed. Please defend these atrocious things in the Bible or go away.
Listen, Jesus only brings freedom and redemption for every soul, including you.
Unless you're a non-Hebrew. Then you're fucked, right? I'm tired of people saying that Jesus is love. When you look at the Bible and it's full of atrocities that Jesus allows and commands and sanctions. Let's stop it. If Jesus was really love, he would actually come here and help people who are starving, help people who really need it. I don't need the help. Help people who really do. Help the children who are starving. Help the kids who have cancer. If God can get rid of it, he should. I think that's the right thing to do.
What's up?
Hey, how old are you?
18.
What year were you born?
2006.
Okay.
So
I think you've been up here before. Are you going to give the precept argument?
I'm gonna give a more refined version. What? Okay, so pretty much any other worldview besides the Christian paradigm couldn't give grounding or justification for
So,
things that we see to be true, like universal. Yeah.
yeah, so give the contradiction in atheism.
Right. The contradiction in atheism is if you posit that your sense experience is subjective, right, then how you would never be able to give justification for the universals.
So your experience is objective?
I'm saying the atheistic worldview commits to that.
Finge, you just said that my view is subjective. Now,
Right.
is your view objective?
In my paradigm, yes, it would be objective.
No, your experience. You said that my experience is subjective, right?
I'm saying on your worldview. That's what your worldview. That's the natural conclusion to your worldview.
What is? I don't. First of all, atheism is
That
not.
that your experiences are subjective.
Yeah, don't you agree that your experience is subjective?
Well, in some ways, yeah, but I'm saying like in the sense.
so you
I'm
fall
saying in
victim
the
to
sense
same
of.
problem.
Okay.
So you fall victim to the same problem.
I'm saying in the sense of how I can see, and we can agree on the universals that we see present in the world.
Well, first of all, there are no fucking universals. I reject that. I'm a nominalist. And first of all, atheists are not committed to any of those things you commit them to. You're strong
Well,
atheism, and you're not showing the contradiction within atheism.
well, I guess I would use it as like not like an ontological argument, but more of like a paradigm v paradigm. So, what would be like your epistemological stances?
Yeah, that's irrelevant, right? You're saying that are you saying that it's impossible to be an atheist?
I'm not saying it's impossible to be an atheist. I'd say the worldview is impossible given the reality we live in.
Okay, so the point is that atheism is impossible, correct?
Right.
So
The worldview would be
the
impossible.
impossibility implies a P and not P, a contradiction. Provide the contradiction for atheism being impossible, logically.
Well, you wouldn't even have a logic in the atheistic worldview.
What?
There wouldn't be grounding for logic.
Look, this is your claim. It's not about my claim, right? Your claim is that atheism is logically impossible, right? Prove that.
Right. In the atheistic worldview, you would commit to positions like the world and the universe being disteleological, right?
Yeah, so do you know what a
But if
contradiction
you've already
is?
conceded, sorry.
Do you know what a contradiction is? It's a P and not P, right? It's the negation and affirmation of the same proposition. I want that, which is what means impossibility, right? Can you give the
Yeah. I'm explaining how the atheistic worldview, to have it, you would have to commit to the position that the universe is disteleological, correct? Would you say the universe has purpose?
Why are you not giving a contradiction in atheism?
Okay, so in the atheistic worldview,
Give the
you have
contradiction.
to commit to the position that the universe is disteleological, or else you would just say that the universe is a transcendent mind. If you've already committed to the position that the atheistic worldview is disteleological, you actually forfeit any grounding you could give to the transcendentals.
Yeah, so can you give the contradiction in P and not P with atheism?
Right. So if you're asserting there's no purpose in the universe, but also that these transcendentals do exist, you're kind of saying there's purpose. Well, but there's also
not committed the atheist is not committed to think that transcendentals exist. So can you give the contradiction in atheism?
so you forfeit logic.
What are you talking about?
You just said the
Logic
atheistic
is not
worldview is not committed to
transcendental. Logic wouldn't
universals.
be transcendental necessarily. You know there's a fictionalist view of logic?
Right. So you've
There's
already
a physicalist
that
of
view.
logic. There's a physicalist view of logic.
So you saying that the atheistic worldview posits that logic is material?
Atheism is not committed to any view of logic. So can you see this is the problem. You can't provide the contradiction in atheism simplicator. I mean, sure, you can look at some atheists and look at their particular views and find a contradiction. But atheism simplicator is not something that you can find a contradiction in logically.
Well, the argument is a paradigm v paradigm argument. If you're
Well,
just
it's
saying, well, I don't
killing.
actually
It's
have
killing.
I don't
Look,
actually
look,
have any epistemological views, then the debate's over. There's nothing to debate
That's
because
not what I'm.
you're just a
That's not what.
coward and you
That's
haven't.
not what I said
Yeah.
either. You said that it's logically impossible for atheism to be true. You have yet to show how there's a contradiction in atheism.
Right. When I make the point that in the atheistic worldview, there's some epistemological stances you have to have, you just say, oh, well, no, you don't have to.
Well, atheists are not committed to any particular epistemic position.
Well, every person
They-
has to
I
be
don't-
at some level,
Yes, but
unless
they're
you're
not-
just
they're not
apathetic to the
committed-
question, which
they're
would be
not- They're
absurd.
not committed to any particular view on epistemology, right? So again,
Yep.
either give the contradiction in atheism simpliciter or go away. We're just wasting our time here.
If you say the atheistic worldview doesn't have an epistemological stance, then there's no ground to
No,
argue.
that's not what I'd say. That's not what I said. Atheists could have a plethora of different
Yeah.
epistemological stances. The problem is that you have not shown a contradiction in any of them.
Well, give me one. Can you give me an epistemological stance? You have yet to provide your paradigm.
Why does that matter? You have yet to show.
Because it's a paradigm v paradigm
You have yet to show
argument.
a contradiction in atheism.
I'm asking how atheism could
So-
Okay.
What's the
Well, that's-
contradiction in atheism? If you can't give it, just go away.
Well, in your view of atheism, if you can't give epistemological justification for anything, then it would just be patently absurd.
Why? Why would it be? Why would it be impossible though? Right? It's not being absurd. It doesn't make it impossible. What is the impossibility of atheism?
Well, every time I say that the atheistic worldview has epistemological stance, you agree, but then you have yet to give one. Is that correct or not
I already
correct?
told you that I'm a fictionalist about logic.
So, do you think logic actually exists in the world?
No, it's not a real thing in the real world. It's something that it's mind dependent. It's something that it's a systematic framework we use to describe things about the real world. So why is that impossible?
Well, if you just assert that it's kind of this arbitrary thing that we use because it's useful, then I would just say to prove that something's impossible would be impossible because there's no grounding, there's no serious like contingent thing that logic is on.
The brain.
That is, you understand that as more metaphysical assumptions within that
That's-
statement,
what are you
correct?
talking about? It's logic just comes from the brain, and that's all. We don't need God. So where's the impossibility in my view now?
Well, you would any thing you posit in your view would just be arbitrary, right? Because I could just
No,
arbitrarily
that's
posit
nonsense.
God, and
I'm using
if
the
you
same
arbitrarily
framework.
posit the
Look,
atheistic
look,
worldview.
Prince, I can have the same framework as you, right? I hold to the three laws of thought. I hold to the laws of logic, at least the classical ones. Why can't I have a framework that's atheistic? Why do I have to think God is the only way you can justify these things? And by the way, axioms don't have justifications. So you're asking, how do you justify logic? That's nonsense. That's gibberish. Logic is a noun, not a proposition.
Right.
hold to certain
Obviously,
axioms
axioms
about
don't have
logic.
justice.
We hold to certain axioms about logic because we don't, without justification. We just follow those laws within our framework. If you're asking what explains those axioms, I would say the brain.
You're right. If you're just arbitrarily asserting that we follow it because it works and it's useful for us, that's not a
That's
justification.
not. I'm not a pragmatist. I'm not saying that either. Right? I would hold to some kind of deflationary theory of truth, or perhaps a correspondence theory. So stop assuming or strawmanning me.
So if you assert that God is imaginary, but you also assert that the tool of logic that you use actually doesn't exist, or it's just a tool that you use, then how could you even come to the conclusion if it would just be
saying
arbitrary?
logic doesn't exist. I'm saying it's not real. There's a difference between something being real and not existing. Right? Logic exists. It's just not a real thing. Just like the number two.
It's not materially
It
present.
exists. It's not a real thing in the external world. It's something
Right,
independent.
It would be metaphysical. It would just be a metaphysical thing.
Not necessarily. It would be something. It could be physical. I hold to the physicalism, But atheism is not committed to any particular view about that metaphysical thing.
All right. Well, you have yet to give a justification for something that you use in your life all the time. So, do you want to stick with that?
When you keep asking the question, how do you justify logic? That's gibberish. Because justifications only apply to propositions, not nouns, right? So asking how do you justify logic is like.
Well,
asking,
I would just
how do
say
you
like the
justify
laws of
microphone?
logic.
How do you justify rocks? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, not justify. What would be your grounding
What do
for
you
its
mean
existence?
grounding? What do you mean grounding? There's different ways you can use the word grounding in philosophy, right? What do you mean grounding? In what modal sense?
Like, how could you know it would just stay the same? Like, it would have regularity.
That's also incoherent gibberish. What do you mean regularity? Logic is
Like,
simply
it'd be
a system
consistent
of-
throughout time.
Logic is simply a system of thoughts that our brains operate with through, and that's it. I don't need God for that. What else do you have here today?
Well, you're just arbitrarily asserting a standard, and I don't know why it'd be
You're arbitrarily
why it
asserting
would
God.
be wrong
You're
for me to
arbitrarily asserting God.
arbitrarily assert.
You're arbitrarily
Exactly.
asserting
So we're
God.
on the same level.
No, we're not on the
So to
same
say
level.
it's imaginary would just be
Because I'm not.
nonsensical.
You're not on the same level because you're asserting God is needed and the only thing that can explain the reality we live in. That's the difference between me and you. I'm not asserting such a thing. I do make presuppositions that logic works. We all do. We all agree to axioms about logic, of course. But those axioms, you and me both share. I take away the God shit. You don't. You keep it. You keep on top. You keep adding God and all these other presuppositions that I don't accept. So we're not in the same boat here. So either justify the proposition that atheism is impossible or please go away.
Right, because the atheistic worldview, any worldview in atheism, right, you could assert different positions epistemologically. I would just say every position that you assert would just be arbitrary to ground the universals that you take to be true.
Arbitrary. What do you mean by arbitrary?
Well, you would just either, it could be circular or arbitrary. You would just say, oh, well, it exists because we see it working, but that wouldn't be a justification.
That's not how logic works necessarily, right? We're not saying it's true because it just seems to make sense that way, right? There are clearly logical actions we abide by within our frameworks. So it follows, right? It's the fact that it follows from the facts, from the premises, that we make these certain conclusions, right? That's how logic works. We're not just saying we're doing logic for the hell of it. It's arbitrarily happening. We're doing it in a systemic way, perhaps a deterministic way.
You're a determinism? You believe in determinism?
Yes,
How could you assert anything to be true?
because we're determined to do so.
Right, but it wouldn't make anything true or false. My worldview would just be the same as yours.
Who says truth couldn't be determined?
So the deterministic worldview determines itself.
No. The truth is determined by whatever the case. You can hold it to some kind of physicalist view of reality, but the point is that the natural world determines the truth. Because truth, in my view, is again in a fictionalist view, it's just the case that truth is what describes reality, and that can be had through a deterministic framework. You don't need libertarian free will to have truth.
Well, I would just say that we'd be on the same ground then. Because if you're determined to make this position, then you actually have no justification for it. Because you were just determined. You were just determined to do it anyways.
Is a calculator determined to do math? Yes, it's determined. It's programmed to do it, but it still comes to reasons. It still comes to facts. ChatGPT is also determined to reason. It still reasons. It still comes up with reasons.
But you could code its reason to give false statements, correct?
Correct.
So how do you know that's not happening in your worldview?
Well, because again, we're not saying we know for a fact. What we're saying is it follows from certain premises that things are true. Now, it works. It's there in a way that we can describe reality properly and accurately, such that we can get reliable results.
That's still not
Like when we do science, it allows us to create things like bottles and microphones and lights and calculators and phones, right? So clearly our logic is able to do something. It is able to generate things. And that is evidence that it works.
So you don't think you can generate stuff without science?
What? No, never said that.
So then why would you even say
I'm
that science
saying-
works
I'm
because
saying
it gives us
science-
results?
The point is that one example, right? Science is a method that incorporates logic. Logic clearly works because we can incorporate it into different epistemological frameworks.
You can't incorporate it into yours
Why not?
because it would just be arbitrary. It could change at any point in time, depending on what your mind feels like.
Well, I don't know what you mean by change at any time. That makes no sense. Our minds are always changing. It doesn't mean that we can't know truth, right? The point is that there's a system still. Although reality changes through time, there's still a sense of a system that works, and it follows. I don't see.
You're just saying it works. That's not a justification.
I'm not saying it's justified because it works. Purely, right? There are other uses for logic. There are other reasons why
Yeah,
it
that's
works.
pragmatism, bro.
No, it's because again, we abide by the same axioms, the laws of identity, right? Excluded middle, right? All these frameworks, these logical axioms, we can use to build up our frameworks about reality. Analytically speaking, we can come to truth without even doing science. The point is that logically, we can come to truth, even in a deterministic world.
Right, but you're saying you could come to truth using logic. I'm asking a question: to what sense would logic be justified to come to that truth?
It's descriptive, it's contextual, it depends on the particular arguments, it depends on the particular reasoning.
Right, but those things could just be arbitrarily asserted. I could just say, well, God is self-evident to me, and it wouldn't be any different than you saying logic is self-evident to yourself.
Well, I'm not saying logic is self-evident to myself. What I'm saying is that we abide by certain axioms, which, yes, you can say are self-evident truths or unjustified, truths. The difference between saying God is self-evident versus saying the laws of logic are self-evident is the fact that the laws of logic are used within particular frameworks, right? Like mathematical axioms are used within certain mathematical frameworks. We're not using mathematical axioms like, 1 + 1 is 2. We're not using that axiom to justify, God exists. That's a separate claim about reality.
You don't think God could be used in other frameworks?
That applies empirics. And it goes beyond the framework of the system. It goes beyond the frameworks, justifying the frameworks. It's something that seems to be empirical or some other kind of claim, synthetic claim.
I don't know, you're just asserting so many things. Like you're saying, well, we see it works, or it's self-evident, we see it in reality, it's useful. That's all I've been hearing this entire time.
No, that's not what I'm saying. You haven't listened to me then, right? I think if you're asking why do we use logic, it's not just because it works, right? It's because it gives us a framework to understanding reality. It can generate results. It can do other things.
It can generate results. Is it working?
This is completely irrelevant to the fact that I have an explanation for logic that without God I can get to.
Well, it would just be arbitrary, the justification you're giving.
Arbitrary relative to what?
You say, well, I know logic exists, or I know this idea of logic exists because I see it working throughout the world.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying I know logic works because I see it happening in the world. That's not what I'm saying. Stop strawmanning me.
Then how do you know logic exists? You don't, right?
Yes, we do know logic exists.
So how do you know it exists?
It's how the brain operates. We observe it. It's an observation.
So is my brain your brain?
What?
Is my brain your brain?
No.
Right. You're just assuming something that would just be self-evident in your mind.
Yes, those are
Right,
axioms
that's
as
another
well.
metaphysical assumption is reality.
That you can make as well with your brain, right? Just like different calculators can come to the same axioms, they can come to the same mathematical truths, even though they're different calculators. Just like our brains are free. Our brains are systems, are mechanisms that can generate these frameworks, these logical frameworks.
So you don't think anybody's mind could come to a wrong conclusion?
Of course, people can come to wrong conclusions. That's trivial.
You just said, well,
The point is
calculators
that
come to the same
point
conclusion.
we
Okay.
can be determined to have false statements. We can be determined to make true statements. The point is that
Determinism doesn't
that-
assert truth or falsity.
I'm not saying
Would just
that.
be
What
if.
I'm saying is that determinism can make a world, can contrive a world where people come to truth and false statements about the world around them. That's all.
True and false according to what standard?
Our own. Right? What is true is what describes reality. What's not true is what does not describe reality.
But if it's determined, how wouldn't it be like physically true through determinism?
No, that makes
If your mind comes to that conclusion, it wouldn't be arbitrary. It'd be the little
I don't understand
chemicals
your question.
coming
I
up
don't
with
understand your
truth.
question. The truth can be determined just like the falsity of something can be determined, right? We can come to conclusions deterministically that are false or true. I don't know what the problem is with your understanding of this.
I thought maybe you were talking about determinism, but I think you just used determined in a different sense. But yeah, I would just say your worldview posits things that I can't give a justification for, and I'll leave because my phone's about to die. But
Things don't have justifications. Your propositions do, right? Rocks don't have a justification. Light doesn't. These are just nouns, right? What has justifications are propositions. Do you know how basic philosophy is that it works?
right, but this would just be you're talking about physical things. I'm talking about metaphysical things.
Metaphysical things. When you're
Don't
talking,
exist.
when you're talking about metaphysics, you're talking about a branch of philosophy that deals with the nature of physical things, the nature of things, right?
Yeah.
So physical things can exist within the domain of metaphysics. So you're also confused on that grounds. You're confused in many different ways here. But most importantly,
Well, I would just say the
showing
physical.
why my view is impossible. You have not contrived a contradiction in my view.
Okay, well, one, I would just say the physical would be justified by our perceived reality.
What?
Because I can perceive a physical thing, that would give justification that it exists.
What are you talking about? Can
You
give
asked me to give a
contradiction for-
justification for a rock, and I just did.
No, there is no justification for rocks. That doesn't make sense. You're talking about an explanation for things, right? What's the reasoning behind, how rocks exist?
But I
That's a
just said I
different
give a
thing than saying
justification by my
justification.
perceived reality that it exists.
Say it again.
The justification would be that my perceived reality justifies its existence.
Yeah, no, so you're talking about a justification for a proposition that logic exists or that rocks exist, right? Rocks are real. That's a proposition which could be justified, right, through observations. But logic itself, logic implicator, it's
Well, you
just
could-
a noun. So when
you could say, like, A
justify
equals A.
logic, when you say justify logic, what you really need to say is give reasons why we think logic exists, and that reasoning is the brain. We can observe logic through brain processes, the prefrontal cortex.
Maybe I'm wording it
This is
wrong.
just completely.
I'm talking about like A equals A. Like, what's the justification for that proposition?
Oh, that's an axiom. By definition.
So you
don't have
assume it.
justification.
Right, to say something like A equals A is kind of like justified within our own heads would just be assuming
Exactly.
other
Exactly.
things. That's
Exactly.
assuming other things, though.
Those axioms
Because
are
my mind
things
isn't
that-
your mind.
I understand that. But both of our minds can come to those same axioms and agree to them. You see? Both of our minds can perceive of these axioms and agree to them. They're unjustified, but we still agree to them because they're fundamental to how the framework works. So This is why I explained to you before. We both agreed to these axioms, the three laws of thought, the classical laws of logic, right? We agreed to those. The problem is that you're adding on top of all this God and all the claims that come with God, on all the inconsistencies that we can point out with God. So, but you came up here to say that atheism cannot justify anything. Prove it.
But the
Prove to me that
transcendentalists.
atheism is impossible. Because even if I'm wrong here, even if everything I told you before was all wrong, it still doesn't mean that you're right.
Well, because you're just saying, well, you can't prove the atheistic worldview is impossible, and I'm saying,
Right.
well, maybe not just that broad sense of the term, but I'm talking about any epistemological stance you have without
Okay.
God.
Okay, so then you agree that atheism is still valid, correct?
No, any epistemological stance under that umbrella would be invalid.
Okay, where's the contradiction in my view then?
Say your view one more time. Or you're
Oh my God, bro, I can't believe this. You weren't listening to anything I told you.
well, so what would be your justification is arbitrary.
Well,
You're saying, well,
you
it's in
sound
my
like
mind and we
sound
agree
like a
on it.
robot. You sound like a robot right now. You're just repeating the same thing.
You just said because we agree on it is justified.
No, you're not understanding. Axioms in logic are not justified, right? They're propositions that are unjustified by definition. They are just things we agree upon. They're self-evident. We take them to be self-evident. You do too, because if you need those axioms to get to God. Okay, so you're doing the same thing I'm doing. You just pretend that I'm bad for no
Right,
reason. Okay, so again, within the three laws of logic that we both agree upon, those axioms provide the contradiction in atheism.
Well, I could give like a bootstrapping problem where that since there's no justification for your logic, right? You use
Oh
logic
my
to
God, why didn't you not hear anything I told you?
okay, A
We
equals
don't
A, whatever.
justify logic. That doesn't
Okay,
make
the laws of
sense.
logic. The laws of logic.
No,
Does that
we
make
don't,
you
we
feel
don't
better?
justify those either. Oh my gosh. All your presuppers do the same thing. Okay? It's cute. It's cuddly. The problem is that it's wrong. When you say justify the laws of logic, nobody knows what that means, right? Logic is just a system that we build upon axioms. Axioms are things that are unjustified. We just agree to them. That's how logic works, fundamentally. Then we build up from there. So when you say justify logic, you can't justify logic. Well, neither can you. You can't do that either because axioms by definition are unjustified.
Well, I'd just say it would be grounded in the mind of God.
That's a claim, right? Now that's something that I don't accept, and that still doesn't show me that I'm incorrect. So you see the problem here with the precept tag argument?
No, I don't.
The problem is that you're asserting I'm incorrect, but you can't show why I'm incorrect. And then you're making assertions upon that and saying only you can be correct. See, that's the problem.
Well, I'm saying in the reality we live in, your worldview would be kind of not justified things we see in reality.
My worldview would kind of not justify things we see in reality. What the
Like it
hell?
wouldn't justify
What does that mean?
like tools we use like causality or things we see like causality, regularity in nature. There wouldn't be a grounding for those things in your worldview.
What do you, oh my gosh. What do you mean grounding of those things? In what modal sense are you talking about grounding? That's something that we don't use. We don't use it in the way you're using it. This is like ridiculous how you're using the word grounding. If you're talking about explaining, how do you explain the regularity? How do you explain the fact that of causality? Is that what you're asking me?
Like possibly, yeah. Sure.
Okay. Causality, in my view, is emergent. It's not fundamental. There is no law of causality in the world, in the external world. Causality is emergent of our perception of it, and that's what my view is. And this is actually a scientific view. There is no law of causality, especially in quantum mechanics. It doesn't exist. So, but this is actually irrelevant to your argument because you have yet to show me that I'm incapable of becoming an atheist logically.
No, I'm not saying you can't hold the atheistic worldview. I'm saying in the in the reality we see that in the reality that we both hold, the atheistic worldview couldn't give justification to those things that we
My
perceive
God,
in reality.
why can't you learn? What do you mean justification for those things? Things
There would be
don't
no,
have justifications.
so there's no
Opposites
grounding for
do.
anything in reality.
What do you mean grounding for anything reality? Reality is all there is. There's no grounding for it. What are you talking about?
So there's no grounding for reality. So
What's the
if I
grounding for
just
God?
assume,
What grounds God?
that's not the problem.
Oh,
The problem is
grounds
your
God, right?
worldview grounds things that don't have grounding either.
Just like nothing grounds God, nothing grounds reality. Reality is all things, right? Reality is the set of all things. And that's my view. And that's why there's no grounding for it, whatever the fuck that means. It just is everything. And that's
If it
perfectly
just is, then
compatible.
how is the proposition God exists a bad proposition?
It's unevidenced. What do you mean by God?
You just said things are just are. So why would I need evidence for anything?
Reality is simple. It's just all things, space and time and matter exists. That's my view.
I would just assert that God exists and we're on the same level.
If you want to do paradigm worldview, a paradigm analysis, sure, we can do that. But now you're moving away from the tag argument.
All right, well, this keeps on going in circles, so I'm just gonna head off, let somebody else get on.
That's typically what precept apologetics does. It goes in circles.
Yeah,
Hello?
what's up, dude?
How old are you?
I'm 33.
Okay.
All right, so I've heard you like talk for like a while. Like I've been watching you for a while. So basically, what my opinion is I just don't think that you have the right idea of what God is. I think in the way that you describe things, like it's not what God actually is. So I heard you earlier say like, okay, well, what created God? And that's where you go wrong. So like, if you have that thought in your head where, okay, this God, okay, who's his creator? And then who's his creator? And then who's his creator? Whenever that chain breaks, that being that created all of them, that is the definition of God.
Okay, great. So you're saying God is necessary. Okay.
Because I heard you say
Thank you.
because he's
Thank you.
eternal.
All right. I understand.
He doesn't have a beginning.
Okay. Thank you. You're saying God's necessary. Great. Prove it, right? I can say the universe is necessary. The universe has no creation. I win. So what's your evidence that God is necessary? Or what's your evidence that God even exists? We don't have to accept that. Right? Go ahead. Show me that God exists.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. So how did the universe get here? You believe in the Big Bang, correct?
Yeah, what do you think the Big Bang means?
Particles that conjoined together basically and bursted and everything came into order. I mean, that's what the Big Bang is, no? What is the Big Bang?
No, very far from it. In fact, the Big Bang was the most orderly thing ever. Literally, the Big Bang was the most orderly state. The universe is only getting ever more disorderly through time. But it wasn't an explosion.
Did that come by random, though?
No, we're not saying it's random either, sir.
That's what I'm saying. So that's where I'm trying to tell you there had to be something that's intelligent. I don't think you're listening, and I don't mean to be disrespectful.
Trust me, I've talked to thousands of theists. I know what you're going to say. God made it. Who made the Big Boom? The problem is that the Big Bang does not mean that there was necessarily a start for it, or a beginning, or a before the Big Bang. We don't know if there's something before the Big Bang. And if there was, well, perhaps there's something beyond our universe, like a multiverse or something, some other kind of quantum realm that explains the Big Bang. Either way, you don't need God. As far back as you want to go, we can come to some natural grounding for existence, natural thing of existence that encapsulates everything. For example, quantum state. So as much as you want to say, God did it, We need more evidence than just trust me, bro. Okay? Go ahead. What's your argument for God's existence?
It's not trust me, bro. It's like I said, I don't even think you're using like your full logic on things. These things have to come from somewhere. You can't. All right, for instance, what's 0 times 0?
1.
No, seriously, what's 0 times 0? I'm gonna get you here. What's 0 times 0?
I'm pretty sure it's 1.
No,
Or
0 times 0 is 0. So you cannot get nothing and create something from nothing.
Okay.
But if you take 0, hold on, wait. If you take 0 times 1, now you have 1. So it takes something. It takes something to create something. You cannot create nothing from something.
You're strawman. I never said you could get something from nothing. It could be the case that everything always was. See? It could be the case that everything always was there, and there was never something from nothing. Maybe nothing isn't a real concept. I don't accept nothing as something real. How do you think about nothing? What does it mean? Oh, it's the absence of something. Okay, well, what's that mean? The absence of something. Isn't that something? So please, you gotta give me better reasoning than just trust me.
Okay. All right. So, like, we can say things on this world work. Like, okay, for instance, the sun and the moon, they're constantly orbiting. There's day and there's night every day, right? So who's the one that controls the night going into the day every day? Who's the one who controls the weather?
Oh,
Because like you have to sustain your body, correct?
His name is Joe. He's the orbit guy. He's in the clouds. He's in space on the moon, making the Earth move around the sun. All right, guys, it's the daylight. All right, guys, let's move the Earth. Go, push. Ah. No, there is nobody doing that. There is no Billy Bob moving the Earth for the night. It's called physics. It's called momentum. It's called physics and reality. It's called nature. Asking who makes the sun and who makes the night and day is like asking who makes the rain fall. Well, there's no guy in the clouds with the rain hose going. It's called evaporation and condensation, all those things. And you don't need somebody for it, right? You're appealing to some kind of intention or agency behind these things. You're personifying the world when maybe things just are natural. Try again. You're thinking you're on the right track, but try again.
Off my microphone when I try to make points. I don't think you're being too fair. Anyway, so since you won't, it doesn't seem like you will take. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that people have honestly said certain things to you, and you know that they make sense, and you just the way that you were raised, like in the West, it's a godless society. Like everybody's starting to not believe in God in the West, but there's never been a civilization in all of time that has not believed in some sort of higher power. So you're trying to tell me that you're right and that everybody else through history is absolutely wrong.
No, that's what you're saying.
No, that's what you're saying. You're saying God doesn't exist. Well, there's never been a civilization on Earth that has not believed in God or some sort of higher power.
Well, the thing about the past is that
so
it's not
you're right
really-
and we're wrong. That's what you're saying?
The thing about the past is that we've learned from it. Now we know there's no need for a thunder god or an earth god or a wind god. Now we know that things happen naturally. We have changed since the caveman days. We have learned about the world. And the more we learn about the world, the less and less needed God is to explain things. That's why we live in godless societies today. But more importantly, I'm not saying I'm only correct. I'm saying I think I'm right. I have some certainty about it that God is likely not real because of the logical problems with it.
What are the logical problems? Like, tell me, what's the logical problems with it? With a sophisticated, uncreated creator that creates everything, what is the logic that would prove that to be wrong? Because there's more. It's more sense that it is right than it is wrong.
Look, you can
you can't tell me. All right, for instance, right here, just let me give you this example. If I told you, like, oh my gosh, look at this painting. This painting is the most beautiful painting you ever seen in the world with the most intricate details you can ever see in your life. And then I told you, hey, Mike, that painting painted itself. It doesn't make sense. It does not make any sense. Like the
agree.
argument
I
that you
agree
make,
because
and
the
that's your
reason
thing. You just mute people. So
you're not listening. That's why I made you. Just listen for a second. That painting has a painter, and I agree we can make that inference. Why? Because we have prior evidence of painters. We have prior evidence of builders for building things. We don't have prior evidence for the universe. We don't have another universe to compare this one to and say, oh, that was made by somebody. We don't have that same comparison to make. So it could be the case that the universe doesn't have somebody making it. And just like we now know that life emerges naturally, so can the universe. See, it's possible that you are wrong about these things. So if you think that, God exists, give me evidence. And I'm open to hearing evidence. I'm open to the reasoning. You're just giving bad reasoning at the moment. So try again.
So you're saying because you've seen somebody painting the picture that's why that there is a painter?
It's evidence.
Saying something that's way more complicated, like the entire universe and all of the planets and everything, how everything orbits and is basically perfect. You're trying to tell me that there's no creator behind that? Like,
There doesn't
I'm
seem to
sorry,
be.
that does not make any sense. Like,
I know
any
it doesn't
sense
make
at
sense
all.
to you. Shh. I know it doesn't make sense to you because you're forgetting the context of the universe.
Okay, what's the
The
context?
Cosmic evolution. The universe went through changes through time, billions of years of small changes went into making the complexity of the universe we see today. Complexity rises from simpler things through physics. Gravity makes complexity occur from non-complexity, or order from chaos, like in star systems. Gas clouds collapse, they form stars. That's order from chaos. We have many reasons why the universe and our bodies and everything around us are complex, and they're well explained through science and physics. None of this is explained through God.
Right, but science and God relate to each other.
No, they don't.
Well, how do they not? How do they not?
Because God is unfalsifiable. Science only deals
What does
with
that mean? Unfalsifiable. What does that mean? No, I'm serious. What is that? I'm trying to have a serious conversation, and you imitating and doing all. I'm really trying to have a real conversation here.
It means we can test them or verify them to be true or not. God cannot be verified. It cannot be tested. It cannot be experimented on. But science deals with things that can be.
That's the point. You're in. Okay, so if you take any mainstream religion, or any religion for the fact, any religion, not just any mainstream religion, any religion for the fact, they all believe that we're in a testing ground right now. The Christians believe that, Jesus is God, or whatever the case may be. Muslims believe in one God. Jewish people believe in God and Jesus and Abraham and all them. But all these religions believe that we're in a testing ground right now, to where God's not going to just come out of the clouds and show his face.
Okay,
He's gonna
great.
put you.
So
He's gonna
where
put
is
you
he?
through trials. If you pay attention to all the prophets, whether it's in the Quran or the Bible, they all have had the hardest lives out of any human being.
Okay, great.
Right.
So what's your evidence that this God exists?
I just told you there's not going to be no one, like, honestly, like, dude, if you're a logical human being, it makes more sense that there is some sort of intelligent creator behind all of this creation that you're seeing.
Why?
Then
What's the reason?
but then it coming together by random. You're saying every single thing in existence, the fact that there's humans, that there's a male and a female human that can pair with each other, every single thing was created in pairs. Everything. And every single thing was created. What
That's
was
not
not
true.
created in a pair?
No,
What
that's
wasn't
not true.
created in a
In
pair?
fact, most things in the world, most biological organisms, are asexual. They reproduce asexually. They
No,
don't
no,
have
no, no.
pairs.
Every plant,
Sir,
every
let me explain to you this. Bacteria make up more things than anything else. You have more bacteria in your body than human cells. Bacteria reproduce asexually. They don't come in pairs, so male and female. So let's stop pretending as if you're right here. You don't know a damn thing about biology, because if you did, you'd recognize that although our bodies are complicated, and although the world is complicated, we have explanations for these through science and evolution. Natural selection explains the complexity. We now have learned through science that the things you're purporting to be true about design no longer make as much sense as it did before. Before evolution, before modern science. Of course, it's a natural thing to say we were designed. It's natural. We all want to look up in the world and say, who made this? It's very appealing. But it doesn't have to be the case. Maybe the universe is indifferent to us. It doesn't care. It just is, and we're part of it. And we're trying to understand every bit of complexity there is. But science can do that. Religion can't. All you can say is God did it. A toddler can say that. We need more. We need better reasoning to be convinced.
Okay, so I see you're not probably going to take it from the scientific approach, but you said basically that religion can't prove anything. So do you believe then that anything that was predicted in the past, let's just say 1500 to 2000 years ago when these revelations were being revealed, and now that they're coming true today, what do you have to say about that? Do you think that's by random too?
Give us your best revelation. The one that demonstrates God must have revealed it.
I mean, all right. So basically, I'm Muslim. So we believe in the Quran, and we also believe in the Hadiths. The Hadiths are the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And so basically, there's an Hadith that says the hour won't come, meaning Judgment Day, will not come until the Bedouin barefoot Arabs compete in building the world's tallest buildings. And this was said 1,500 years ago. And as we know today, where are the tallest buildings in the world?
1,500 years ago, sir, there were buildings back then.
Excuse me?
There were buildings.
There weren't tall buildings like they are now.
Sir, the pyramids were there when the Quran was being built or being made.
Okay, that was in Egypt.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the Arab.
Right. He was in Mecca, Arabia. It's not near there.
It's right near it, sir. I don't see it. Look, the point is, it wouldn't be too hard to infer that there would be buildings that are tall, because they were buildings back then. There were tall buildings back then.
Right, but we're talking about the Bedouin barefoot Arabs, not the Egyptians. Hold on, wait. Let me make my point.
Look, why doesn't God reveal the cure to cancer? That would be a great revelation. Why wouldn't God reveal what happened before the Big Bang? That would be a fantastic revelation. Why couldn't God reveal the solutions to quantum gravity? That would be a great revelation. A building? A building. That's your best bet? That's the best thing your God could have given us? The most omniscient being in the world, the most intelligent being ever, just told us about a damn building in the desert? Right? This seems unlikely that God said it. It seems more likely that they're just talking about buildings in their area. So try again. What's a better?
That the universe is expanding?
Oh, here it comes.
I'm asking you. Do you believe that the universe is expanding?
Yes, I do.
You just speak. All right. So the Quran also says that.
Okay. Well, what's the verse where
Allah created the universe and He is certainly expanding it? Okay. Hold on, wait. It's just you, dude. Listen, I know your tactics. I say something that's gonna get you, and you keep muting me.
No,
just to talk over me.
I want you
and
to
then you start babbling about something that doesn't absolutely make no sense.
I want you to give the verse.
Okay, for instance, in the Quran it says every living thing is made from water. As we know today, every living thing is made from water.
Well,
the Quran says the universe is expanding.
Hold on. The Greeks knew that. There were Greek philosophers who agreed that every living thing comes from water. This was known thousands of years before the Quran. These are inferences being made thousands of years before the Quran. Now, in terms of the Big Bang is not described in the Quran. The Quran talks about the heavens. God and Allah in the Bible, according to you, the Quran says Allah created the firmament and expanded the firmament around the earth. That's what it really says. If you actually know the context of the verse, it's not saying the Big Bang. Because if you notice, it says it was the conjoined, the earth and the thing and the firmament was conjoined. That didn't happen. There was no earth at the Big Bang. It could not have been talking about the Big Bang. Also, if you look at the further context, the Quran never talks about galaxies. It doesn't know what a galaxy is. It doesn't know what stars are. In fact, In the Quran, in the Surah 81:2, it says the stars can fall from the sky. That can't happen. Stars are far away and they're big. They can't fall to the earth. If we get close to them, we would fall into them, right? So, no, that Quran is not true. It also talks about milk being pure, talking snakes, a big ass boat with all the animals, Noah's Ark. Those things never happen. So let's stop cherry picking.
Yeah, like I said, you're just with the mic muting, dude. You're killing me. I just don't understand, like, what's stopping you from having a fair conversation. Like, I don't understand why the mic has to keep being muted.
Your ignorance.
And then, no, you're ignorant because now you're quoting the Quran on stuff that's absolutely not true. It absolutely talks about the Big Bang. It absolutely
Then
talks about how every living thing's made from water. Absolutely talks about how the universe is expanding.
All right, okay.
Absolutely talks about
demonstrate
human
these
reproduction. Human reproduction, how we came from sperm, and then that turned into a clot, and then that turned into
There is no
flesh with
clot. There is
bones.
no clot, sir.
Okay, when did we discover that, dude?
There is no clot.
When did we discover that?
You have to listen.
When
This
did
is why
we discover that? I'm asking
have
you.
to
When did we
listen.
discover
You
that?
have to listen. Shh. There is,
You're telling me to listen. You've been talking the whole time and
there is
muting
no
me, dude.
clot. When you're in the embryo, there is no clot of blood.
Okay, so the scientist that actually discovered this actually converted to Islam. In the same way, the Quran talks about. Listen, the Quran. Listen
because
to
you're not
what I'm telling you.
listening.
Can I be?
You're not
Can you give me
listening.
a fair shot here? Give me a fair shot, because all you do is keep belittling the situation. You're not actually coming back with anything that's actually logical besides saying things that go in circles. You're not saying anything that's actually of relevance here. All you do is keep talking about science, 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 science.
Yeah, because you don't know science. You think it's all God,
But
God,
it
God.
all aligns with each other.
Then demonstrate why the
When
clot.
did we
why the
figure
Quran
out that
says
humans
clot.
came from sperm? When did
Anybody-
we figure that out?
anybody with the brainstem
We've
knows
only figured that out in the last, 200?
No. Anybody can figure out that we come from sperm. You have sex. You have sex and babies come out. That's that's something a caveman can understand. Secondly, when it talks about embryology, there are certain parameters by which even a caveman can understand the steps of embryology and fetal development because of miscarriages. People get miscarriages and we can see the baby, we can see the fetus as it comes out in almost every stage. Furthermore, the Quran mentions a congealed clot of blood. That doesn't happen at all. So explain what that means, because there is no such clot of blood that makes up a person. So go ahead and demonstrate how the Quran got that wrong.
No, it's all right. I'm going to go on to what I was saying before you cut me off again. Anyway, what I was trying to tell you is the Bible has a story too of Moses when he split the sea with the staff, and him and the children of Israel ran through, and the pharaohs went and chased them down, basically. Well, in the Bible and the Quran both talk about this, but the Quran specifically states that God is going to preserve this body for future generations to see.
Oh, great. Well,
Okay, and it's okay, and that same pharaoh can be seen today in a museum. That same
What is
pharaoh.
this?
Not only that, his cause of death was drowning because of the amount of salt that was found in his body.
Drowning? Okay. So not only do you not know science, you don't know basic language. All right. Let me explain something. You're making claim after claim after claim. The Moses split the seas. Where's your evidence of that? The predicted pharaohs. What verse does it talk about the pharaoh, and how do you know that it's talking about the specific one you're mentioning? And why is it that a person could not have figured this out or predicted this? Pharaohs or kings were very common back then. They understood the past. They understood Egyptian history. They understood Roman history. The Muslims who wrote the Quran. They understood history. Muhammad was not illiterate. He actually understood history. He was actually told it. So again, the Quran is a conglomeration of all that history. But go ahead and please explain to us why God must be the explanation for the splitting of the sea, which never happened.
So you can prove that it didn't happen?
There's no evidence it
There's
did.
a lot. All right, check this out. There's a lot more people on Earth that actually believe that it did happen than didn't happen.
That's an
This
appeal
is
to
what I'm trying to say,
popularity,
dude.
fallacy.
Atheism just became
This is
something
an
just
appeal to
recently, dude.
popularity.
There has never been a civilization on Earth that does not believe in some sort of
I'm sorry, folks, but I just cannot handle that anymore. It's just going in circles. You're appealing to popularity. You're saying, oh, nobody else believes in atheism, therefore I'm right. That doesn't make sense. There was a time where most people believed the flat earth. Are you going to be a flat earther now? Because most people believed it back then? No. We don't follow the popular opinion. In other words, just because it's popular doesn't make it true. It's a fallacy. But thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed your irrationality. You're right. The Quran does describe a flat Earth model. Still wrong. We now know the Earth is round. A caveman can figure that out with 2 sticks. You're screwed either way, right? Hello?
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
I'm over 18, if that's the next question.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Hey, I saw your chat. I see your indicative. I guess that's an indicative statement you got up here. God is imaginary. Is that an indicative?
Indicative.
It's not in the form of a sentence. I'm asking.
Yeah, it's a claim I'm making about God, certain types of gods that are illogical, right? I would say the Christian God is not real.
Okay. So you're the one that made the indicative statement.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just making sure. And by imaginary, you mean false?
Yeah, not real.
Okay. Well, not real and false may not necessarily be the same thing. By false, I mean the opposite of truth.
That's why I've said it's not real, right? God is likely not real in my view. It's illogical inconsistencies with it.
So you by imaginary, you mean the opposite of true?
Not real.
Do you believe in true and false?
Yeah. Do you have an argument for God, or should I just kick you?
Well, I'm just trying to establish that you have a morality. So my next question is, before you made that indicative statement, did you think to yourself that you should make that statement?
Yes. What is your argument for God now?
Okay, so it was because you thought you should make that statement, on what epistemological basis did you come to that conclusion that you should say that God is imaginary?
Well, when you say should,
Yeah, I'm asking you
if
what.
you're talking about a moral sense, I do. There's more reasons why I do this, but there's also logical reasons why I say we shouldn't. God does. I'm not saying we should logically. I'm saying that God doesn't exist because logical issues with it. So can you like, what are you asking here for? An argument against God, or can you give one for God?
I'm saying that you cannot rationally come to the conclusion that you should say God is imaginary based on any empirical descriptive statements. Do you understand what I'm
Yes,
saying?
we can say that God's not real based on the lack of evidence, based on logical issues with God, analytical statements we can make
Have you studied logic?
very vaguely.
Okay. In logic, there are informal logical fallacies and there are formal logical fallacies. Do you know the difference between the two?
Not really, but do you have an argument for God now?
Well, what I'm going to demonstrate is that you don't have any rational basis for any morality whatsoever, and therefore, if you're consistent with your presuppositions, you would really be quiet and not say anything. But you can't
It
live
sounds like you're just
consistently.
mad because you just don't want me to be up here and speaking against your religion.
No, I'm
Look,
intellectually,
look, morality, I don't need a
you.
religion for fucking morality. Morality just comes from my brain, from other people's, from surveying my environment, seeing the consequences to my actions. That's a form of ethics that I get without God. Now, what is your argument for God? Do you have one?
You just begged the question. You're assuming you can come to an ethical standard, but you haven't demonstrated that with a
My
syllogism.
standard is just preference based. Things are good that are good are things that are preferred for society, for me. Things that are bad are things that others don't prefer.
To the previous caller, you appealed to the verification principle. Do you know what that is?
Yes, but I'm not appealing to verification as if it's the only way we can come to truth.
What other ways can you come to truth?
There are logical ways. There's a priori ways to get to truth, right? We can make analytical statements about things. We can make logical statements about things.
You
Now, can you provide an argument for God?
Now, to the previous caller, you told him that you take the three laws of logic as axiomatic. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you take the principle of affirmation, negation, and excluded middle, from what set of premises can you come to the conclusion that you should say God is imaginary? How do you deduce the ought?
When I say God's imaginary, I'm saying it likely does not exist because of the omni-paradoxes, the problem of evil, divine hiddenness issues. Those are logical problems with God.
Those are your claims, but that's you don't understand what I'm asking. I'm
Yeah.
asking
So what? Like, if God exists, are you Christian?
yes, sir.
Okay. If God exists and is all good, we would expect a world where there's only good. We would not expect a world where there's so much evil and so much gratuitous evil. So that's evidence against God in my eyes.
That's a non sequitur, but I'd be more.
Okay, let me make a syllogism.
We can
here
talk
for
about the
you.
problem of evil, but I think you need to address how you can come to an ought from an is. You have to logically demonstrate syllogistically that you could deduce a normative statement from a descriptive statement, even if you presuppose the laws of logic. If you can't do that, you don't have a reasonable basis.
Well, I'm not making a normative statement here about you should or should not believe. I'm simply saying I think God is not real.
Now, okay.
Now, what is your argument for God?
Previously, you said and admitted that you thought you should say God is imaginary. That's a normative statement.
I'm not saying you should say it. I'm just saying it.
No, you admitted that you thought to yourself.
I
that
never
you could
admitted that you
say
should say it. It's just something I say. Can you provide the evidence for God now?
Let me be a little bit more general. You seem to be missing it. I'm saying that before you make any statement whatsoever, you must make the judgment to yourself that you should say what you're about to say.
Okay, that's irrelevant, right? That's irrelevant as to this thing I'm stating here. God's not real. That's a simple statement I'm making. What's your evidence for God then?
You're trying to dismiss it, but I'm telling you, no one thinks to themselves, I should not say this, and then they say it. If
Why
you
does
say
it matter what I should or
always-
not should say? That's irrelevant to this conversation.
Well, because with your epistemology, which is eclectic, you're going to still have to demonstrate how you can deduce a normative statement from a descriptive one. Have you read David Hume? He was an atheist.
Yeah, can you provide an argument for God, or should I kick you?
No, I'm a presuppositionalist. I don't try to prove
We
axioms.
can, we
You
can
said-
tell. We can tell you're a presuppositionalist. So
like you
you have an
admit-
argument for God. How do you know God exists? Do you believe in God?
the previous caller, you explained
Sir,
that
do you believe in God?
you don't prove
Do you
axioms.
believe in God, sir?
Do you think you can prove an
Do you
axiom?
believe in God?
Yes.
Okay, what's your evidence for God?
It's axiomatic. You don't prove
Okay,
it.
what's your evidence for God's existence?
I presuppose the Bible alone is the Word of God. You don't prove an axiom.
How do you know the Bible is the Word of God?
I just told you start with axiomatically.
Okay, so you're taking it as an axiom. No rational person's gonna fucking take that as an axiom. Why should we take that as an axiom?
I will say Jesus Christ did. John Calvin did. Martin Luther did.
Yeah, those are not the smartest people in the world.
I
And
know.
furthermore, they still, again, still, they're not rational.
John
They're not-
Calvin could. John
You're
Calvin.
not gonna, red, please. You're not going to convince any rational person that God exists because the Bible says it. You're not going to convince me. You're not going to convince any person who's rational. You're only going to convince people who already believe in your shit, right? So what is the convincing argument that God really exists? Because just as you posit the Bible, I can posit the Quran or the Vesta, or the Egyptian books or the Roman books, all the other books. No person's going to accept the Bible just as an axiom. That's nonsense. Try again and provide actual evidence instead of a precept.
Okay, you muted me. I didn't see that. You've already admitted to the previous caller that no one provides logical argumentation for an axiom. Are you retracting that statement?
Yeah, the problem with saying that the Bible's an axiom is the sense that an axiom goes into making a framework. And it's purely analytical. The Bible is an empirical thing. It is an empirical thing that goes beyond a framework. It goes beyond the 3 laws of logic. Right? The Bible is not needed for the laws of logic to be true. Just like, in my view, right, axioms are needed for the laws of logic to be true. However, the Bible isn't. That's the difference. You can't just say it's an axiom and run away like a little kid. I win, it's an axiom. That's what a child does. We're looking for something more than just saying, I presuppose God.
Do you understand that the laws of logic are propositional?
Yes, but the Bible is a proposition that is not an axiom, right?
You know,
the Bible goes beyond axiomatic principles, right?
You know what
It's
a proposition
you're now going into an assumption about reality that implies empirics and implies all kinds of other things beyond the framework itself. That's why you can't use the Bible or you can't use the God as an axiom, because it doesn't help the framework.
Do you know what a proposition is?
Yeah.
What is it?
A conclusion based on premises that follow from the conclusion that follows from premises.
That's a definition of a syllogism. That's not the definition of a proposition.
A proposition is a statement you're making. It fits within a syllogism. What's your point? What's your evidence of God now?
Well, that's not a definition of a proposition
What's
either.
your
That's
evidence of God? What's your argument for God's existence, please? If you're going to say precept, I'm just going to kick you.
Hey, man, you're claiming to be logical, but if you can't meet the logical requirements for a definition, then you're not very logical. I'm trying to help you out.
That's a non sequitur.
It's
That
not a
doesn't
non
follow. Just because I can't provide a statement or a definition doesn't mean I'm illogical. It's nonsense. Secondly, provide evidence for God or go away. I'm tired of this shit.
I can see you're tired, but if you can't define a proposition, you can't establish your own belief. You need to think about that. Let me give you
What
the
are you
definition.
talking about? I don't need to define jack shit for you. I want you to give me evidence for God, or you can just go away, because this is embarrassing for you.
You're not embarrassing me. I can define the term proposition.
Then give evidence for God. Then. Go ahead and give evidence for God.
I've already established you don't argue for
Give
it.
an argument for God. Give an argument for God.
You're asking someone
Give an argument for God.
How you're acting like a 2-year-old.
Give an argument for God.
Young man, I'm
Give an argument for God. Give an argument for God.
Respect.
Give an argument for God.
You don't ask
Give
someone.
an argument for God. Give an argument for God.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I will give an argument for God, but first you must explain how you can start before you
Give an argument for God, please. Give an argument for God.
I'll give you one chance to do it. Go.
Give an argument for God.
You lost. You just
Give an
lost.
argument for God. Give an argument for God.
Red Beetle 1,
Give an argument for God, please.
Atheist 0.
Yeah, give an argument for God.
Everybody listening, he couldn't even define the term
Give
proposition.
an argument for God.
Anybody
Give an
wants to
argument
read
for
my
God, please.
page, check it out. I'm a Presbyterian author.
Yeah, give an argument for God. Give an argument for
this
God.
guy in less than 10 minutes.
Give an argument for God.
He can claim to be logical,
Give
but
an argument for God. Give an argument for God.
He can't even define the basic terms of
I did. Propositions are simply statements. They're either true or false. Syllogism contains propositions that follow from the conclusion follows from the premises.
That's the definition of
That's an argument that you are not giving right now. Give an argument or go away.
stating a property of a proposition.
Give an argument or go away. Give an argument.
You can't even meet the requirements.
Give an argument. This is a, I just want to give you one more chance because you seem like a nice guy. Give the argument for God. You have one more chance. You're muted still. It's really nice to hear silence.
Yeah. Even Aristotle said that you must presuppose.
Yeah, have a good day. Look, guys, I don't want to be a mean person. I really don't. It's just that these guests are infuriating. They want to play with words. They want to make a nice big word salad. All I want's a good argument. I'm open to good arguments. I just want a good argument. That's all. Even Aristotle.
Hello?
Hey, how can we help you?
All right. So, my first question to you is, are you gay?
No.
You're not gay.
No. What's your argument for God now?
Are you sure about that? Because,
you want to embarrass yourself today? Or
I
do you
have
want
a
to
gaydar, bro. So, I can tell that you probably deviate from religion because you are gay and you don't receive any acceptance.
Yeah, so what's your argument for God?
Oh. What's your argument for lack of God?
Divine hiddenness, problem of evil, Downey paradoxes, the problem of creation. I can go on and on.
All right, mister. I know everything. You'll get really far that way.
I don't
You're gonna die, bro. You're gonna die and you're gonna be sent to hell and you're gonna be like, damn, I should have believed.
If anybody thinks they know everything, look, if anybody thinks they know everything, it's you. You think you have all the answers.
I don't, but I'm just putting that prop.
You have a book of fables, and now you pretend you have all the answers. That's not how you get the truth. Look, you don't have to be so abrasive. Just give good reasoning for God, and I'll be open to hearing it, right? But if you're going to say, are you gay? That's ridiculous. You're being very hateful. Clearly, you're being very hateful. So, look, give an argument. Be like Jesus and be nice, okay? Give an argument for God, and I'll be happy to hear it. But don't insult people.
Oh, okay, Mike. All right, Mike. So here it is. I can't give you solid reasoning for God, and I think you know this because you've been doing this for about a year now. You know people can't give you solid evidence of God. That it's a question of faith, and that you can't be bothered by people that have this faith because it is their decision.
I have faith that being gay is good.
I mean, I didn't say anything about being gay. I didn't.
Yes, you did, sir. You did.
I did not. I did not. I didn't say anything bad about being gay.
You liar. Yes, you did, you liar. The first thing you fucking told me was that. So just as you have faith in your magic genie, I can have faith that I'm right. I win, right? Isn't faith is how you win the truth, right? See, faith is unreliable. It's fruitless. It's essentially worthless to have faith. It doesn't get you to the truth in any reliable way. So that's why any rational person is not going to accept faith. We're going to accept reasoning. Now, do you have any reasoning for God? If not, just tell me and I'll kick you, okay? Go ahead.
Any reasoning for God? You know how funny you sound right now? Because you know I can't give that to you. You know that there is nothing physical.
Then you have no point in being in my life, right? I care about reasons. Good ones. It's really that simple. Hello?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, I heard your arguments. Yeah, I go both ways. I mean, I'm a Catholic, but I was an atheist before. And I think that I could argue both points because I left the church for a while and I started getting into the Anunnaki and
Great,
the whole
great.
story of the Mesopotamian, and it runs parallel to the Bible.
Okay.
And
All right.
and you
Okay,
could
Billy.
see
Okay,
all the
Billy.
in
Okay,
between.
okay, okay, great. What's your argument for God?
That's what. Well, I'm setting a preface up so you know where I'm coming from.
I
Or you just
don't
want a
care
yes
for
or
the
no? You just
preface.
want
I
a
don't
yes or
care
no?
for the preface.
You just want a yes or no? I don't understand because you can't just get random people that come from all over the world.
I would love to hear your life story, but I'm looking for arguments right now, right? Sorry to be rude, but we have a lot to move on with.
Hello,
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I just have to say that you're an absolute loser. You're probably gay, and you're going to hell. And
Is this that Christian love they talk about?
I'm just saying, well, how fulfilling is your life? How fulfilling is coming on live and arguing with people? You look
I,
stressed. You look
I'm,
distressed. You don't look
I
like you're enjoying
am,
this whatsoever. Is this
I'm
really
gonna,
what your Is this really what your life was meant to be?
yes, I'm very happy about what I
You're
do.
happy. You're happy.
Yes, I am a very fulfilled person because I don't get my purpose from magic wizards in outer space. I get my purpose from doing things, helping people, loving my family, my friends, doing things to help people think more. I'm extremely fulfilled in my life. I don't need God to be happy. And if you do, that's kind of sad. Because I don't base purpose on God, I base purpose on reality. Okay? So yes, I'm very happy. And I love debating too. I enjoy it. I like talking to people. I like hearing their reasoning. I like making people think. I enjoy it. Just because you don't like what I'm doing doesn't mean you get to come up here and insult me. And I understand where you're coming from. I used to be a Christian too. I used to be very, you're going to go to hell. I used to be that same way. But I've learned since then, and hopefully you can too. So let's try to come up with a better reasoning instead of, you're going to die. You're bad.
You're lying to yourself though. I've been watching this live. You've been stressing. You're putting your hand on your forehead. You're complaining. You're stressed out. You don't really enjoy this. You might get TikTok
I
views.
don't
It might
enjoy
make you a
every
little bit of
conversation.
money.
I don't enjoy every conversation because people like
I haven't
you,
seen one good
Franco.
conversation yet. I haven't seen.
Well, that doesn't mean I don't have good conversations. Number one. Number two, the guests are the ones who give me a bad time, like you're doing right now. See? You see how that works? How funny that is? That you're the one, ironically, making the live worse, right? That's why I want to go back to the argumentation. So please come back with a good argument this time, or else I'll just kick you, okay? Oh, that silence is great. Yeah, so click the microphone button when you're ready. We can't hear you.
You could kick me if you like. I'm just saying that this is not what you were meant to do as a human being. You're not helping anybody. You're not. This is a hateful, terrible stream, and I don't see what you're getting from it. Like, do you have like family and friends who support this? Do you have like any significant other? Like,
I understand you're mad about what I'm doing. I used to be the same way when I was a Christian. I used to think atheists were just hateful people. They just hate God. But that's not the truth. I don't hate God. I don't believe in God. It's just that I think we should have these conversations. Because look at Dylan, you don't clearly talk about this with your family. You clearly don't question God. You clearly think it's wrong to question God. And I'm here to say maybe we should question these things. Maybe these conversations are important. Just as I saw it was important in hindsight, in retrospect, that the person I talked to when I became an atheist was important in hindsight. In retrospect, it's important for me to learn from them when they question my beliefs. So again, questioning things is important. It does help people. It might not help you immediately, but when in retrospect you look back and go, wow, Mike said something that really made me think. That's all I want. I want the world to think more. We need more thinkers. We need more critical thinkers who can think in a more proper way than just, oh, what feels good to me is true. The Bible sounds good, makes me fuzzy inside and warm, therefore it's correct. Or I saw my grandma in my dream, therefore God's real. Right? This is the kind of reasoning that not only is wrong on the surface level, but even deeper than that, makes things happen and infiltrates into other areas of society. People can vote based on their beliefs in God. They can vote against abortion rights. They can vote against gay rights. They can vote against many things that affect me. People feel lost when they leave religion. They don't have a religion, right? I'm here to show other people who are even atheists that there is a way to having a happy and fulfilled and purposeful life without religion. There are many aspects as to why I do these lives, all of which are important to me and many other people. So I understand your concern, but it's misplaced. You shouldn't be angry at me. You should be angry at the people you listen to in the church who tell you things that are not necessarily true. You should be mad at the people who brainwashed you. You should be angry at yourself for not thinking more about your beliefs. I just want to make a little difference in the world. That's all. I see a world where people are devaluing the truth. They believe what feels good. Right? Look at the hurricane conspiracies. Oh, the government's making hurricanes. That's nonsense. But again, this kind of religious thinking, if we let it get to us, will lead to all kinds of conspiracies. The government's out to get us. The hurricanes are coming because Biden's not going to make a hurricane. That's idiocy. Largely produced through religious thinking. Hey, how are you?
How are you doing?
Impatient.
Yeah. So, my view on God is I don't like you. I don't believe in a traditional Christian or Muslim type of God. I do believe in I don't know if you believe in this or not, but it's simulation theory. So, my view of God is like that.
Yeah, I really don't care about simulation. We're all in a simulation, except for the simulator. Hello?
Hey, Mike. I just wanted to present a few arguments, maybe to discuss God possibly being some arguments for God. So one, like the typical blind watchmaker argument, where you find like a watch on a beach and you see that it must have come from some designer. I guess the reason why we dismiss that argument is because we know that it's been designed by it's not natural. It's not something that came through natural processes, and I think that's how we dismiss that argument. So I guess where I would go with that is, if we think of the world being natural, coming through natural processes, like the Big Bang and evolution and creatures, just going for survival and so on and so forth. I feel like what humans are and what we do kind of falls into unnatural processes. Sorry. Yeah. So like what I'm trying to say is that if we were to look at how we do things and in the world, it's somewhat very unnatural. Like there's a lot of things that if you were to take a step back and wonder where are we getting if everything is natural, then why are there unnatural things in the world, like us?
I don't believe that anything is unnatural. I think you're confusing the term unnatural with unmade by humans. There are made things and the non-human made things, but all of which are natural in my view. Everything's natural. Natural in my eyes means within space, time, and matter. Right? That's what natural means. So in my eyes, everything's natural.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I just thought that there's something there that kind of makes me wonder. Another thing that does also make me wonder is the idea of oneness, of existence, and the feeling of oneness of consciousness. And this is just something that I feel like I've experienced, just kind of with experimental type things. So I feel like maybe that's another possible evidence
Are you talking about hallucinogens and experiments?
Yeah, well, yeah, I know it's crazy, but
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to convince someone like me, right? I agree that, those things can give you certain experiences, but that doesn't imply that they're some kind of supernatural world or realm that you're going to. When you dream, you don't go to some supernatural world. I think when you dream, you're just thinking when you're sleeping. Just like when you're hallucinating, you're just thinking these things that the brain produces.
Yeah.
That, by the way, which we can induce in people through other ways. We can test these experiences and see. There's no reason to think there's something supernatural happening.
Sure. Yeah, it's just sometimes if you do it in a group setting, the experiences that you have as a group, and when you share them, sometimes it gives you this sense that you're all kind of experiencing similar or same things at the same time. So it makes you wonder, is there something more than just yourself in consciousness? And so I don't know.
Okay, great.
That's just something yeah.
Great. Go test this Go test it out, right? Go form a scientific test on this. I would love to see the results, but there is no such scientific
Until
test.
then, yeah.
You can't falsify others' experiences. You can't do that. But it's also a mistake to say that, those other people have similar experiences, therefore there's something happening here in a group setting that doesn't happen individually speaking. That's also a mistake. I mean, what happens in group settings is psychology. Certain psychological phenomenon happen in group settings, right? People are more inclined to believe in others when in a group setting. A lot of different things happen when there's a group setting that can influence what people say about their experiences. And you'll be surprised as to how much this can have an effect. So the point is that I wouldn't be so
convinced by that.
I wouldn't be
unless it's scientifically
quick. I wouldn't be so
experimented
quick.
on.
Yes, I wouldn't be so quick to just simply agree with these things because of my preconceived notion of what it means. There's lots of mystery in the world, but it doesn't give us the right to say God fills in the gaps of our knowledge. It's got the gaps. But yes, it's amazing that we're alive. I'm also I'm a human too. When I look at the world, when I look at a dog or a cat or a person or a cow or a spider even, I look at immense beauty in the world, immense magnificence, and it's astonishing, the world around us. It's amazing that we're here. But I also am disciplined. I think in a disciplined manner, such that I'm not so quick to accept what I think about the world as true because I want it to be true. I'm more skeptical of things, unless there's evidence for it. So the point is, as much as we want to appeal to some kind of designer or magic, it's going to be difficult for someone rational to accept those things. Oftentimes people are looking for hope. They're looking for, some person to save them, to guide them through all this mystery. Humans look for this. So it's only natural that we contrive some kind of being to give us these things. But we have to be careful. We have to kind of fight off those inclinations and recognize that the universe, as we look out in the world, right, the pale blue dot, so you look in a more cosmic perspective, a more broader perspective, those inclinations are dwarfed by the vastness of the world and what really exists and the mystery of it. For so long, humans have only been on Earth looking down. It was never the case until the past century that we actually saw the Earth from beyond the surface. That does something to you. It changes the way you see the world and how we live. It's no longer that somebody up there making it for us. It's now the sense that we're just this little thing in this bigger picture. And although the universe doesn't care about you necessarily, that the universe is unfair, bad things happen, people go through all kinds of terrible experiences. So much sadness in the world. Although that's the case, within all the madness, you can still find a sense of peace and happiness by looking back at that broader perspective, that cosmic perspective. That, kind of like embracing what we have, appreciating the things we do have. I'm very appreciative of the things we do have because it's finite. The fact that we only have one life might be sad to some people. But to me, it makes this life all that more valuable because it's all we got. All we have is each other, our friends, our family, the people, the earth, nature, animals. That's all we have. So to me, I want to cherish that. Even as an atheist, I want to appreciate it more because of its finitude. How rare we are, how precious this experience is. So again, within that harsh reality, I can find the light at the end of the tunnel. I could find a way out of the sadness and mystery. It's not precious if there's no point. But what's the point of God? Maybe the fact that there is no ultimate point is the point. Maybe the point is that there is no point, and that we're all living our lives discovering what our individual points are, our own individual purposes are. Maybe we don't have to find our purpose out there. Maybe it's here, in your family, your friends, the things that are real in our lives every day. That might be the point. Maybe it's not the other side of the universe, as we always look for it, waiting for it to get here. Maybe we don't have to wait for it. Maybe we can make the point. We can make purpose. We can be the purpose ourselves. That's a far more powerful perspective than, our purpose is there only because we were made by chance by some magic wizard. That's not purpose. I mean, come on, think about it. The only reason why we are purposeful is because some magic being made us by chance? No, that's a sad way of grounding purpose. To me, is way more value in being a custodian of purpose, being the one who manages and makes it happen. But again, this is a very difficult thing to grasp and come to grips with. It's scary to leave religion. It's scary. It feels like you're going into this undiscovered realm. Stark cave. But if you understand the methods of science, or uses science as a candle in the darkness, it's like a compass, right? Think of the world as an ocean. Science is a compass you can use to navigate the ocean, right? Science is a way to navigate the world. And that's what, that's a way better compass than religion, which is just, it points in the same way. It has the same direction to it always. It doesn't change. But science adapts. Science can change depending on, it can refine itself. It can improve itself. The compass of science can be way more fruitful because it adapts to changing conditions. Whereas the religious compass is always stagnant, never changes. You just got to trust you're on the right path. Okay, you're going to bump into walls. You're going to bump into alligator, human-eating alligators and islands. You're going to land in all kinds of things that you don't want to land in. But with science, you can better refine your navigation. Very, very abstract. Science is not a religion. The point is that both things are capable of being used to truth, to get the truth. It's just that one of them is not fruitful. One of them is extremely fruitful. That's the point.